I've been off the mat over the grid. Like my heart, but I'm dodging the sig. One time, cause I'm straight with the pen. 2 times, come my location off. 3 times if you think I'm your friend. All my friends question where have I been, but did my promise, let me make it a day. Get your calendars and go mark the day. About a year from now when I meet today.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mila, and today I am going to be showing you guys how to do this quarantine tank that you see right over my shoulder. So quarantine tanks are not at all hard. Basically, you just need a tub, a couple of hides, you know, the basic necessities, and you're good to go. So I'm going to be showing you guys how I set up this tank for my new baby boa. And let's go ahead and jump into this video. Before we get into the video, I would like to lead with the following disclaimer. Quarantine setups are very simplistic most of the time, and there are good reasons for that. In my setup, I did include reptile carpet and wood, and generally speaking, these items would not be used because they are porous surfaces, and if an infestation did break out, it would be very hard to clean and disinfect these items. So do keep that in mind if you do decide to include it in your tanks as well. I also included fake plants, which are fairly easy to clean, but that will add an extra step in your sanitation process should you choose to include them. Also, shameless plug, but if you like the background photo for this disclaimer, be sure to check out my Dumeril boa's Bioactive build, which is on the channel now. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into this video. Alright guys, so first I'm going to start by putting some newspaper down. The reason why I'm using newspaper as opposed to paper towel is because I've really been trying to work better to be more sustainable this year, and so I just feel like paper towels are going to be wasteful. Although newspaper is also paper, I do get the newspaper in the mail, and so it's almost like repurposing it instead of just throwing it in a recycle. So I'm going to use newspaper. I've also, even like in my kitchen, I've been trying to avoid using paper towels, so I have reusable cloths instead. So whenever I can just not use paper towels, I'm going to prefer it that way. I am going to put down a couple of layers. So the reason why you don't want to put substrate in your quarantine tanks is because you want to be able to monitor for the waste. You want to be able to monitor for mites. And so basically, you just want something that's really simple to set up and also really easy to dispose of. If there are some type of mite situation, you don't want them to be able to burrow into substrate and reproduce. You just want to be able to get rid of the substrate, make it easily disposable. That way you can keep a very clean and sterile environment. So originally I did want to put carpet in here instead of newspaper, but my carpet was a little bit smaller than my bin. But I think I'm just going to throw the carpet in here anyway. It is machine washable, so once it gets soiled, I can just dispose of it, or wash it rather. If you don't have to use the carpet. I already own it, so I wouldn't go out and buy this for this purpose. Also, I think it'd be a good idea to have the carpet in there so that I have a little bit of a better buffer between my heat pad, since I am using a basic plastic tub here, and then I don't have to worry about my heat pad getting too hot with that thin layer of newspaper in between. Alright guys, so as I already said, I'm going to be using a heat pad as my heating element. So you do want some type of thermometer. This is a digital thermometer that you can get at your PetSmart or your Petco. This is from Zoomed. This is a Zoomed thermometer. It does come with a probe. You want to make sure that you have a probe. The probe is what goes directly on the surface where your snake is going to be. That way you know the temperature at that point. Also, as another safety precaution, you want to have your heat mats connected to a thermometer that can turn off once a certain temperature is reached. So I do have all of my other heat mats on that. So that's just a good point to point out. So I'm going to put the probe on the side where I'm going to have my heat applied. So we'll put it there. So now I just have 2 hides. So you're going to need a hide on your cool side and then a hide on your warm side. So we're going to consider this one to be the warm side, right on top of that probe, because again, that's where my snake is going to be. So that's where I want my probe and my heat to be regulated. And then we're just going to put this one on the opposite side where it's going to be a lot cooler. Alright guys, so the next necessity is going to be a water dish. Because this bin is not that large, I don't want a water dish that is very huge. Preferably you want something that is large enough for your snake to soak in. And because I have a baby boa, this is going to be perfect, just big enough for him to be able to soak. So I think I'm actually going to orient it that way. So typically I don't like my water dish to be on my warm side because it's going to lead to a large boost of humidity if it is. So I typically like to keep it towards the middle or on the cool side. There's nothing wrong with a large boost in humidity, but generally that causes a lot of evaporation, and especially in a tub situation, I just don't need that much humidity right now. So I do have it over there in the corner, and that gives me a little bit more floor space in the middle. So typically in your quarantine setups, you want to keep it very basic, very simplistic. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of decorations in there as long as it's not overwhelming and too much going on. So we do have these fake plants. I think I'm only going to use one. So let's try this guy. So we got a little bit of greenery in there. It's not doing too much for us, but we don't want to overwhelm the tank at all. That's not our purpose. And remember, we are using a disposable substrate, so we're going to be taking out that carpet, taking out that newspaper, and periodically throwing it away anyway. So you don't want too much decorations in there that you're going to constantly have to move around. This is not a bioactive substrate, so you want to keep it basic. Alright, since it's fallen, we'll just put that little guy over there in the corner. Now the last element I have is this wood. I did collect and sterilize this wood myself so that I know it is very clean. The reason why I'm putting this wood piece in there, not necessarily because you need it, but again, I kind of like to go a little bit more decorative, even though this is a quarantine setup. But also, the surface of this wood is very rough, so when our snake is in shed, it'll have something to cling on and help get the shed off. And I like putting some type of climbing pieces in our enclosures. Again, not necessary for a quarantine setup. But there's nothing wrong with adding a little extra oomph every now and again. So I kind of like that right there. It kind of is right on top of our warm side. It gives the baby boa a little bit something to climb on. So that's actually not too bad there. So I think I am going to add that extra greenery. So this setup is a little bit more decorative than a lot of the other quarantine tanks that I've seen. But really, the thing about it is you can kind of do it the way that you want to do it. As long as you are doing the quarantine portion of this, it really doesn't matter. So this looks good. I mean, I think this is what we're going to go with. We have our cool side here with our water dish, and then we have our warm side over here. With the greenery and the climbing branches, I'm loving it. It's going to feel secure to the boa. He is going to have a couple places to hide, especially that greenery is going to add a little bit more security for him. So don't forget to put air holes in your lid, and also if you want some cross ventilation, you can put the air holes on the side as well. The really great things about these tub setups is that it's going to maintain humidity very well. So at least while your snake is quarantined, it should be able to have good sheds for you in this setup. So now let's go ahead and get this guy to where it's going to sit while my snake is in quarantine. Alright guys, so we have our little boa and we have the quarantine tank set up behind us. I will mention, when it comes to location, if you have other animals, especially other reptiles, you do not want to put your quarantine tank in the room in the proximity of your other animals. That way, if something does come back, there is something wrong with the snake, like mites or respiratory infection, you don't want that to spread to your other collection. So if you can, the purpose in quarantine is to keep the tank set. Alright guys, so our little guy is in there. Look at that little face. He's so cute. I don't like putting my heat mats directly on the carpet. One, it's a fire hazard, but two, heat mats can discolor your carpet. I've done it plenty of times. So if you have like a tank or something like this, be careful about putting it on your carpet. I will say that. So this is everything. Our little guy looks like he's going to be quite comfortable in there. He's already hanging out in the greenery. So I think this is a cute little setup. Quarantine tanks don't have to be so blah all the time. So this is a good example of one having a little pop of color, and it's still going to get the job done, and it's still going to serve its purpose. So that's it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.
Through all of my chips in the game, risk it all, I am not playing safe. Lyrically, there is nobody on top of me. Seriously, all this mumble rap really be killing me. If I'm in your city, you know I'm pillaging. F***ing the villages, boy, I'm diligent. When it comes to myself, I ain't feeling it. Trifecta out the gate, I'm a trilogy. Stuck to my roots like how religious niggas be. But I never switched up, yeah. If I throw a punch, you hit the gun,